Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder went to places last night that few people will ever go to. They went to a sacred ground of competition, a sacred ground of manhood that most of us can only witness, not even aspire to. These celebrity boxing fights that are so commonplace these days, social media people that have, tapped into something, our instinctive need to see a great fight, they should worship at the altar of a fight like Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. There were no win, no losers last night. There were no losers in that fight last night. There were two men who tested themselves, and I think that the edge for Tyson Fury came that he's been a boxer his whole life. His whole life, he was named after a boxer, Tyson Fury, and he's had his struggles, has been well documented with weight, with depression, and so forth. Deontay has also had his struggles in life, and you have to say that Deontay Wilder's effort kind of made this fight. The work that he put in between the last fight, which I watched at a sports bar, the Fury Deontay Wilder #2. I watched the sports bar, and it was to me very disappointing. One-sided fight. The undercard was not very good on that show. I was not expecting much from this fight last night. My expectations as a fan were not even. I mean, it's hard to put into words. It's a fight that I'm glad that I watched live. I wanted to give boxing another chance. When I think of boxing, I think of Larry Holmes versus Carl Weathers. A fight that most people have never even heard of. But Carl Weathers was challenging Larry Holmes for the heavyweight title. In my opinion, he won that fight, Carl Weathers, and it was a decision victory for Larry Holmes. Flash forward to Mike Tyson destroying people left and right. I think guys like Pinkland Thomas and Tony Tucker and Joe Frazier Jr. and Marvis Frazier. Tyson just decimating people. Everyone was getting excited for this Mike Tyson Evander Holyfield super fight, and they just had Tyson versus some, middle of the road guy, Buster Douglas, James Buster Douglas in Japan. James Douglas's mom had just passed away, I believe, 2.5 weeks earlier, and Buster Douglas comes out looking to put Mike Tyson's head on a silver platter, and damn near did. Wins the heavyweight title of the world and puts everything into a uproar. Holyfield had to beat Douglas, and Mike ended up going to jail for a couple of years. And all the things we've seen, the Lennox Lewis years, the dominance of Lennox Lewis, documented in a film that I was a script consultant on, writing for some of the voiceovers that Dr. Dre did. Lennox Lewis, with his victories, his unification, first a draw and then a victory over Evander Holyfield. I'm saying all that to say that I don't know if any of those great moments in boxing, the Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, Joe Frazier years of heavyweights was before my time. My dad used to go and watch those fights on the big screen in closed circuit. So last night I kind of felt I was in that tradition, going to the movie theater, closed circuit TV, big screen, $25 to watch this thing. A good crowd, not a sellout in the movie theater I was in Jacksonville, Florida, but a good, enthusiastic crowd. And we were all kind of on the edge of our seats, realizing that we were witnessing greatness. We were realizing men fight as men. You know what I mean? So I enjoyed it. I thought it was a wonderful fight. I thought it was an epic battle. And you have to say that Tyson Fury was talking about the match afterwards, and he was saying that he went over to the defeated Deontay Wilder and tried to offer him consolation and congratulations on a great effort. And Deontay, according to Tyson Fury now, Deontay was not very receptive and did not want to show sportsmanship. Now That's all that Tyson Fury said. We weren't there for that. I don't think the cameras picked it up as far as I know, as far as I've seen. But you kind of can understand where Deontay is coming from. He put it all on the line, and it just wasn't enough. It reminds me of some ways the New England Patriots with Tom Brady, 10 years ago now. Time flies, but they had that undefeated season. Was it 2007, 2008? They go, was it 16 victories and then 2 playoff games, and then 2 or 3 playoff games, whatever it was. They get to the Super Bowl. They've had this unbelievable undefeated year, and they play the team that they defeated in week 16 of the regular season, the New York Giants. And shockingly, the New York Giants won that game. And then 3 or 4 Super Bowls later, you had the Patriots against the Giants again. The Patriots did not have an undefeated season that year, but they had a great season. And they go against the New York Giants again. And once again, the New York Giants, with Eli Manning at the helm, defeat the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. So I think I'm not comparing directly Deontay to Tom Brady or the New England Patriots. I'm just saying sometimes these matchups, the oldest cliche in the book, styles make fights. For whatever reason, Tyson Fury has Deontay's number. And my theory is just because Tyson was really born into boxing, and Deontay, according to all the stories I've heard, got into boxing at age 19. So there's just an experience advantage. The world of boxing, the paradigm of boxing is just in this Tyson Fury's blood. You have to say that he's the generational fighter in the heavyweight division. He still is undefeated. He does have that one draw against Deontay in their first fight. So it's pretty interesting. Deontay, Max Kellerman was doing that on the broadcast last night. There's nothing for him to be ashamed of, Deontay Wilder, in this effort. But I think because he's the guy in the fight, he's going to have a different take on it than the rest of us. The rest of us can sit there and say, oh, good job. But we're not him. He just knows that he didn't win. And Kellerman was saying, should there be a 4th fight? Kellerman was suggesting that Deontay would love a 4th fight. Deontay would love another chance to beat Tyson Fury, and probably wouldn't stop looking for rematches until he got a victory. And then maybe would want another one. So, but the thing is, Deontay Fury would probably lose. Deontay Wilder would probably lose to Tyson Fury 99 times if he thought he could beat him the 100th time. That's how much you can tell he wants this thing. But the hard lesson for Deontay, and for all of us perhaps, is sometimes you try your best and you just can't get it done, which is a tough lesson, because we always tell ourselves and tell each other, oh, you can do anything. Well, sometimes the other guy just has that advantage over you, and you just have to accept it and move on. And hopefully Deontay can move on and have other great fights, whether it's Anthony Joshua, whoever. There's still a lot of big fights in Deontay's future. I hope he doesn't become, I hate to say it, but marvelous Marvin Hagler was so distraught when he lost to Sugar Ray Leonard in that disputed decision so many years ago, I believe 1986 or it was 86 or 87, that Hagler never fought again. And if Hagler probably had 2 or 3 great fights left in him, and it would have been great to see a Hagler-Leonard rematch. Leonard may not have wanted that. But I hope that Deontay can kind of heal, and he can realize that he put on a great performance, and maybe he fights a couple of other guys. Maybe Tyson goes away and fights another couple of guys, and then they come back for a 4th fight. But I don't think it should be an immediate rematch. I think these guys have been wrapped up with each other since late 2018. They need to go out and fight other guys. I was thinking perhaps, would this be something that if Tyson Fury won this fight, and he's getting big money for these things, would Tyson Fury say, hey, I'm done. I've done all I can do and I'm retiring? Didn't seem to be the case. That wasn't even brought up. And Tyson Fury sang the song. I think he's saying Walking in Vegas, which I could be wrong, but I think it's a variation on, was it Bob Seger, Walking in Memphis? I don't think there is a song Walking in Vegas. I thought it was Bob Seger's Walking in Memphis. I could be wrong, and hopefully I'm not. But was kind of impressed because the first time I remember watching Tyson Fury was when he beat Klitschko for the title. I guess that was 2015. It was a horrible fight. I hated that fight. I watched the whole thing. The Tyson Fury got the title that night, and then he sang afterwards. And I was like, this guy's a clown. Like, this guy's a big stork. You know, who is this guy? They just won the heavyweight title. And after no offense to the Klitschkos, I know that they were dominant, both of the brothers, but the Klitschko era really ruined heavyweight boxing for me and probably for a lot of people. Just most of the title fights were overseas in Europe and so forth. No offense to the European people, but here in America, you want to see the fight in Vegas, you know, Atlantic City, New York, Madison Square Garden. The Klitschko years were so god awful for heavyweight boxing. And this Tyson Fury guy, for me personally, I haven't watched every fight he's had, but now I feel like, wow, this guy is a shining star, and maybe I've just missed out on it. So the entrance was very interesting. You know, Deontay had an excuse for fight number 2 that he felt that he wore this heavy uniform, but that was his own choosing. You know, hey, look, if you're going to wear a heavy uniform and complain about it and say that the 40 pounds of heavy uniform, Deontay, that's fight number 2. That was your choice. He comes into the ring last night. He's got a different outfit on, pretty intimidating, pretty elaborate, cool look. And then Tyson Fury comes in with this really odd, kind of reminded me like a Red Hot Chili Peppers video. Give it away now. You know, the kind of carnival worker who starts off Tyson Fury's entrance, and then you segue into this band, like this Egyptian parade. It was very, I don't want to say wrestling-esque, but somewhat, and just, but I did like his choice of music. AC/DC shook me all night long. I thought for a moment he might come to the ring to Sweet Home Alabama. Some theatrics were being played. I mean, stall tactics, perhaps. Tyson Fury was saying that his gloves had a problem with his gloves, was a little bit hesitant. I changed my pick at the last moment. I initially picked Deontay Wilder to win by knockout in 7. I was going by Skip Bayless, who had a nice theory going into this fight that maybe Deontay would just catch Tyson when he wasn't thinking about the fight or something. I changed my mind when the delay came with the punching. That's why I changed my pick, because I said, man, is Deontay not ready for this? Is he not in his right mind? Why is he delaying this thing? What's going on here with these gloves? And I made a last moment pick to Tyson Fury by KO in 3. My choice almost came true in the 3rd round because Tyson Fury knocked down Deontay in the 3rd. Both guys got up twice successfully from the canvas, which is very impressive. Tyson Fury twice in the same round, 10-7 round for Deontay. I believe that was the 4th, if I'm not mistaken. Very impressive for Deontay. He got knocked down in the 3rd, come back up. To be honest, he never looked the same. If you watch this fight, if you saw it last night, and I hope you did, Deontay never really looked the same after getting knocked down in the 3rd round. You know, he just had a look on his face, a glossed over look. If you watched enough boxing, I know my buddy Javed has watched a lot of boxing. He's in here. So you know that when a guy is kind of on fumes and he's fighting on instinct, and it felt like that's where we were. He was fighting on instinct, both guys. But I'm saying when both guys got knocked down, they got rattled. The advantage for Tyson Fury is that he's just been boxing a lot longer. So his autopilot game is stronger than Deontay's autopilot game. They've both been hurt. They've both been rattled. But because it's like muscle memory, Tyson Fury's just been boxing so much longer, if you think about it, that his muscle memory is just stronger. I thought it was a great fight. The undercard was interesting. I came into the theater late. I caught the replay of the first guy knocking out his opponent. The second fight with the 2 bald, bearded guys, you know, was interesting. The Nordic guy, I guess, has the number of this other guy. A lot of low blows, a disqualification. I was interested. I was intrigued by this Nordic guy. Does he have a heavyweight future? That's for a contendership. He's 37 years old. I can't remember his name. And then you had an undefeated battle of 2 guys, a 15-0 guy and an 18-0 guy. Was it the Cuban Flash? I thought the other guy was going to win, but the Cuban Flash got a relatively easy decision. The other guy, I can't remember his name, sorry, but he was just holding back his punches, wasn't letting them fly. Uh, Cuban Flash was interesting. I mean, is he a guy that, I mean, the cool thing with this undercard was that it was all in the same division. I like that concept as far as the main card. I did watch the undercard fights as well on ESPN app and ESPN2. So some good undercard stuff. So yesterday was a day that I gave myself to boxing, you know, which I hadn't done in a long time. I haven't allowed boxing to dictate my schedule in any given day for a long time. And so it was nice to kind of revisit boxing with mixed martial arts, specifically UFC, being so dominant for 20 years in the public consciousness of fighting, 15 or 20 years, let's say. It's nice to see that there's still a spot for boxing. And there's something about a boxing match that even a great UFC match, maybe because of the round system, you have 12 rounds of boxing. There's only 5 rounds in UFC or MMA for the most part, or 3. So you just have it's a more epic is what a boxing match can do. Of course, you wouldn't want to do a 12-round UFC fight. Those guys, you know, you couldn't do that. But for a 12-round fight, back in the day, it was 15 rounds. It does feel like an evening. It does feel like a fucking, I mean, you're talking about 36 minutes of actual boxing, plus I believe another 11 minutes in between rounds, right? So that's, if I got that right, 12 rounds times 3 is 36. And then you have 11 breaks of a minute. So that's 47. So, I mean, it's pretty epic what these guys do for 47 minutes on the clock and 36 minutes of actual competition. These guys are hammering each other. I thought it was great. This is one of those things where, you know, I think back some of the greatest fights I've seen and some of the fights that I missed out on, you know, the night in MMA and UFC that Ronda Rousey lost to Holly Holm. I was very tempted to go somewhere. I could have seen the fight. I had a work job that night and I could have gone easily to see the fight at a sports bar for whatever reason. I was telling myself, I got to go see this Ronda Rousey versus Holly Holm lady. I didn't do it. I missed out. And here I am years later still thinking about it. Yesterday, for whatever reason, 2 nights ago, I saw that this fight was on the big screen. I made the determination I'm going to go see it. I didn't have much expectations. My expectations were far exceeded. Thanks to the fighters, first of all, Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. And they came to fight, you know, which is the bottom fucking line, isn't it? If these guys come to fight, then it's all worth it. So if you didn't see it last night, you can always watch the replay. I think what people do, though, is if they don't see the fight live, they hear about it, they watch some clips. No one's going to sit there and watch the whole replay. So this is what happens. If you invest your evening, if you invest your time, your money into watching this thing, and you're a part of it live, you feel like you are a part of the experience. If others didn't do that, if they were gun shy because the second fight was pretty bad, or if they didn't want to spend the money, they thought $80 was a lot, and they didn't realize you could go to a movie theater in certain parts, like I didn't see it for a lot less money. Then you feel it doesn't register to you how great the fight was unless you actually watched it. So if you are going to watch the highlights and just say, oh, okay, they both fell down a few times, you're not going to fully get the greatness of this situation as it occurred. And that's just the deal with watching things live. You take a chance as a spectator, as a witness. Am I going to see something special tonight? Am I going to see something that 20 years from now, people will be watching the heavyweight division and say, oh, these guys are nothing compared to what Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury did back in my day. This is one of those Ali Frazier fights that people will be talking about and comparing whatever they see to this. Getting very choked up. Okay, folks. So I think I've made my statement. I think it was an epic ode to manhood. Kellerman was really great last night in his studio commentaries and saying that this was an inspiring fight. This is the type of thing that people, if a certain mentality, can watch and get inspired by and say, what do you learn from this? Well, you know, Deontay did the work. Yes, he lost, but he did the work coming in. So did Tyson Fury. but I think we weren't expecting much from Deontay. He's known as a puncher, a heavy puncher. He went in there with a game plan. He showed resolve. He really wanted this thing. He really worked hard. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. But the good thing was the referee did a great job. I think you have to acknowledge him. He was in there with two huge guys, 6'7", Deontay, 245, a chiseled muscle. I think Lennox Lewis had a great point. Perhaps these were the wrong type of muscles. You know, Deontay had bodybuilder muscles or fitness man muscles. He didn't have the physique of a guy who can, you know what I mean? Like the muscles might have worked against him, in other words. Tyson Fury, just a big guy. You know, he's not a body guy, obviously. So if you put these two guys next to each other, you'd say, oh my God, this Deontay guy's going to kill him. But Tyson Fury has the body and the physique that works for him. And in this case, with boxing so specifically, you almost wish that they showed a clip of Lennox Lewis, you know, training with the young Deontay. You kind of wish that maybe Lennox Lewis was a quarterman for Deontay, an advisor, if you would, instead of just a commentator. Wouldn't it be great if Lennox Lewis was an advisor? And what else? The Emmanuel Stewart video that they talked about, the prophecy video. My God, how inspiring was that? Rest in peace to Emmanuel Stewart. You know, just he was prophesizing back in 2012, I believe, that Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder were going to be the top guys and they were going to have a great fight. And here we are, you know, 9 years later, and the prophecy has come true. Will there be? I kind of have a feeling, folks, to be honest, that there probably will be a fourth fight. I think it's one of those deals where if the money is on the table, there's two trains of thought. But I think in the boxing world, it's easier. Okay, you got these two guys, they fought 3 times. The third fight was the best fight, obviously, of the 3. Let's cash in. Let's make the easy money and get for 4, because there's no guarantees. You know, like the average person, me and you, was going to say, well, if you know Deontay fights this other guy and Fury fights this other guy, and they come back. But the problem is either one of them could lose. Deontay could lose. Tyson Fury could lose to someone else. You don't want that to happen. So, in other words, if you're going to squeeze this thing as a product, as a cash cow, Fury Wilder 4, the smart move is to do it now. The smart move is to like announce that fight within a week while it's hot, and people can bicker and complain. Well, we don't need a fourth fight. Tyson Fury's won, obviously, the series. It's about money, because you know when these guys come to town or pay-per-view again, you're going to be more people than ever should want to see it. So I think that's probably what's going to happen, despite everyone saying, well, you know, Tyson Fury should unify the titles or this, that, or the other. The problem is they've put so much, the promoters, I believe that two different promoters had to work on this thing together. They're going to do a fourth fight. That's just what's going to happen. It'll probably be within 6 to 8 months. And I think the fourth fight, I'm just going to go on a limb and say Fury wins again. You know what I mean? And I think it'll be another great fight. Not as great as this one, but I'll predict in the fourth fight, I'll predict Tyson Fury with a knockout in the 6th. I think it'll be another epic fight, but I think eventually Fury will win. I just have a feeling we're headed to a fourth one. I'm not saying that's what I want to happen. I say that I think that's what is going to happen. So this is it. Very happy for the state of boxing last night. Heavyweight boxing was redeemed. These gentlemen did their thing. Congrats to both guys. I know Deontay might not be feeling like he wants congratulations, but I want to congratulate him anyway. He came out stronger in a loss. Once again, I'm saying a lot of the stuff that Kellerman said on the podcast or the broadcast, but he did come out stronger in a loss, which is very difficult. And it was when men were men. Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. This has been your reaction. I did not react last night. I had to savor this, and I'm glad that you watched the video. Many other great videos here on Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel, and thanks for watching.